Well, I know it's Friday before a nice, fun holiday weekend, Kishani. So I'd say why don't we go ahead and jump in? But yeah, absolutely love these series we've been doing. Super appreciative for everybody jumping in and spending a little time with us today. I think this is one of our all-time favorite topics to just dive into a little bit on KPIs, business reporting, systems, tracking. It can be a fun conversation, but yeah, to kick it off. Kishani, do you want to give like a little bit of background about yourself and your experience in the early education industry and what you're doing today?
Sure, yes. So, hi everybody. So, I'm Kishani Matthias Boldebrahan. I am the founder and CEO of Kids Early Learning Centers. We have four locations in the DFW area in Texas. I've been in EC world for 25 years. I've owned my centers for 14 years. I'm still a hands-on CEO. I don't go into my centers, but I monitor and I manage my centers. We are also building three locations in Ethiopia. So we are taking our brand international. We haven't started yet, but it's all under construction right now. So I am happy to be here with Teddy, with Line Leaders, to help how we can support all the childcare CEOs and directors on the best subject I know most about is performance tracking and ROI, right, return on investment. I'm also a Childcare Success Academy coach, a business coach. So if you all don't know about Childcare Success Academy, check us out. And I'll let you take the rest, Teddy.
Amazing, amazing. I know it's such an incredible feat for childcare owners to open up multiple centers and to hear you doing it, not only multiple centers in the US, but global is incredible. And yeah, kudos to you and the team for that. What a fun challenge. But yeah, Teddy Hook here, head of product for LineLeader. So I am very much on the software side. I have been exposed to the early education industry over the last 5 years, largely through working with our customers, talking to our customers, and building products for early education operators. That's what we do. And I learn so much every time I talk to early education operators and owners. Huge, huge respect for what you all do is incredible. But very fortunate to be joined by somebody like Kishani today because I am not an operator. I haven't been an operator. So I can share some insight about what we build from a software side, but you can hear it directly from folks like Kishani who actually live and breathe it. So yeah, I mean, I guess to start us off a little bit today, Kishani, do you want to just give us maybe what's your super high level overview of how you view business performance tracking today, and maybe some of the really key kind of metrics or systems you use to monitor business performance? I know that's a huge topic, so feel free to attack it in any way you think is best.
Yes, so when you are a one center owner, it's easier to track your enrollments, your withdrawals, your how much of money you're getting in and stuff like that, and your cost of care for your children, because you need to have metrics on how you do your cost of care, so that way you can raise your rates and you know how much that classroom is bringing in with your FTEs. Um, I track it, and when you expand to multiple locations, it gets a little difficult to track because each center is different according to the demographics, according to the area, according to the size of the location and the capacity. So you have to know what your benchmarks are. Like, how much are you spending for payroll? What is your benchmark? Is it 50%? I know industry standards is like 50 to 55%. Also, depending on whether it's a bigger location or a smaller location, you need to know how much of payroll costs, your expenses, your fixed cost, which is all that you have to spend for your location, plus your other food cost, anything that you do for the summer program. So you have to track your numbers. If you don't track your numbers, you don't know where your dip is. And then last minute, and what your waste is as well, right? If you're serving food, you need to know how much of food is served and how much of food is wasted. We always track on our food costs, but we don't track on our waste. So what I do is I created benchmarks on a Excel sheet and created that as the CEO dashboard. and I have my metrics, which is my benchmarks on, I cannot exceed more than 55% for payroll. I can't exceed 20% on my fixed cost. So I put that for that 100%, I just broke it down into certain percentages and put it on my spreadsheet. And then when I track my numbers, it turns into red, green, or yellow. So that way it gives me an eye opening to see where is that dip coming? How much of kids do I need to make this happen? What's my cost for each location or each by, I do it by monthly, weekly, and daily. And I do it by hourly for cost of care. So I know how much I'm spending per hour to take care of one child. My tracking numbers are sometimes it's $5 an hour to take care of a child when you put all your expenses and break it down by classroom. So I know how many kids I need to have to be even or to make a profit.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So much in there. It's amazing to hear. And it sounds like at the very first primary level is like you need to know how much you're spending. Like how much is it actually costing you to operate this center? And what's fascinating to hear you talk about a little bit kind of your dashboards, how you build these out per center. If you're a single center operator or you're even operating four centers, like you mentioned, you're kind of still you're doing a lot of things similarly, right? Like you're
Right.
still taking an individual look at the center. Maybe you're learning from having four. Maybe you're able to set benchmarks that you can reference against them.
Mhm.
But you're saying, hey, I need to know very first, like how much are we spending? If I can
Mhm.
distill this down into monthly, weekly, daily, hourly, it's incredible, right? That's then the very primary level KPI that lets me do every other KPI off of that, right? What's my then enrollment to fill the center? What's kind of my staffing allocation? How am I actually handling maybe payroll or rates? Do I need to increase rates? Yeah, so it kind of all starts with what am I spending? And it sounds like you do have some dashboards you've kind of built and you really like to create to track that.
Right. Yes. It's pretty simple. You don't have to make it very complicated because then it's going to be difficult. You just use an Excel spreadsheet, and then you put your benchmarks into it. I color coordinate it, and I just want to make sure that it stands out. And then every week we track it. So we do weekly tracking, and then we do a monthly tracking, a quarterly tracking, and an annual tracking. Because if you track it weekly, it's easier to fix than waiting to do it monthly or quarterly. And you find those big old gaps that you can fix because it takes time. So it's easier to fix it when it's smaller than when it grows bigger. I mean, I have a CPA and accountant too, but I do my own tracking before they do theirs because they do it monthly, so I can see the gaps.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. I see I'm keeping an eye on the chat a little bit. Great question. We're just throwing out acronyms here. KPI. We use that as a key performance indicator, right? So it's just call it maybe a goal or like a business
Mhm.
measurement or any sort of kind of metric or number that you can really use to evaluate your business. Kishani, you use the word we quite a bit there, and I just wanted to double click on that a little bit. When you say we, is that your conversation you're maybe having with the director at the individual center? So you have this
Mhm.
way to look at things from maybe like an owner level or a higher level, but then you're going to go maybe monthly or weekly or annually and actually review this with the center director. They're the kind of the core person in that we story.
Correct. Yes. So what I do is like I track this weekly and then we bring it up to my directors at a Friday meeting or a Monday meeting. We do a lot on Slack. So we put it there and say, okay, here's what we tracked and here is where our benchmark is. So we are at the red for maybe payroll because you're not controlling payroll, right? So your teachers are having too much of overtime, or you have too many teachers and less children. So your scheduling is not right. So once you track your KPIs, you can see what is that KPI that is there that is hurting you. So if it's payroll, you know you're having a leak somewhere. Either you're having teachers that are just clocking in and staying there and not being on a schedule. So then you got to go look for your schedules and make sure that your schedules are set in order so that way they're not having any overtime. If you don't track these, then your directors don't even know because they are so busy and they're having to wear so many hats, right? So we do this at the back end and then we bring it up to them and say, okay, here's what's happening. Let's track back and see now issue. If it is the cost, then has any of the bills gone up? If your fixed cost has gone up, like have you checked your electrical bill? Have you checked your water bill? Because sometimes your water bill is higher because if you're doing summer activities, and then your that expense is high too. So if you set it at 10% of your cost, then if that is going up to 15% and it's on the red, then you need to see where those are. You have to negotiate your prices every quarter with your vendors to make sure that you're getting the best price. So that can cut cost as well. Your mortgage, if you have a mortgage, if you're paying rent, you need to negotiate your rents, because if you're not having children, because right now everybody is struggling for enrollment, so you need to go into the back end and see what you need to do to cut that cost so you can make a profit or break even.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's there's so many critically important topics you're covering there. And I think when we talk about like data and KPIs and the way you handle it, Kishani, today makes so much sense where okay, like we're going to create this system of really important measurements we can track. And what like we like to think about it on the software side too is it's like, how do I know where to look next? And
Mm-hmm.
and it's I think really important for like the owners out there or maybe the higher level operators who aren't in the center day to day to probably start to establish these. It's maybe a lot to ask like center directors to be maybe managing these, but they need to help provide the context around the data
True.
because
Right.
you need the data to tell the
Mm-hmm.
story, right? Hey, do I know that my expenses just went up because water just doubled on me? Hey, I need
Mm-hmm.
to go talk to my director and say, maybe why did this happen? Hey, payroll just skyrocketed. Like that's what I need to visualize. And then I can go have that conversation with the director and say, hey, why is payroll so high right now? We haven't really
Mm-hmm.
increased enrollment, right? So what's going on
Right.
here? So it's kind of this, okay, let's establish these metrics.
Mm-hmm.
Let's figure out how we can review them. And then what is this cadence we have with our staff to tell the story? Because data can be misleading too. Sometimes you might see a data
Right.
point and say, oh my God, this is worrying me, or it's really exciting me. And then you kind of
Mm-hmm.
go talk and get context, and it's going to tell you a little bit of a different story.
True. You have to get your directors involved as well. So we have scorecards that the directors use. So it's a daily scorecard that they have to track on how much of enrollments they have, how much of withdrawals, how many kids left, how many kids are coming in, what is was there staff that you had to have left? Is there new staff that you hired? Especially when you're running multiple locations. So the directors have to give those information to you so you can plug it in to your tracking system and then you can track those. So we track like how many kids withdrew for that week, how many kids were enrolled for that week. So that sets that benchmark too on those numbers that you are setting up to make sure that those are working as well. And marketing. So it's a whole group of things that you have to do. You have to track your marketing. You have to track your systems. Do you have a system that you use to track this? Because we are so used to tracking with tracking with Excel sheets, but right now there are so many systems that you can use to create and have one system that you can use that doesn't hurt, and then everybody can enter that system and then just put the numbers in so you can check it every week or every day. Sometimes you have to check it every daily too to make sure that your numbers are working.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when you mentioned you talked a lot about kind of dashboards and building those metrics as well and using systems and tools out there is so important. I think like as long as I've been in the industry, what's fascinating is you kind of hear these similar challenges across all childcare operators and it ebbs and flows into kind of which one is maybe the biggest focus at the time, right? One is enrollment. How do we get more kids in the center? And we've seen that has been pretty challenging over the last couple of years for a variety of factors. The other that you touched on a little bit is retention, right? Okay, great. We were working really hard to get families in the door and it can be hard to kind of keep them. And then the third piece, of course, is right staffing. Staff is very challenging as well. And oh, great, now we finally have all these children enrolling, but maybe I don't have staff to cover them. So I think you've talked on it a little bit, Kishani, and like this is why the data piece is so important because I know a lot of people listening to this conversation are like, I'm overwhelmed, but it's kind of figuring out like which one of these areas do we need to focus on. Hey, maybe
Right.
payroll is good right now. I can see like we're kind of in line with what we're paying out and how much it costs to run the business. Like maybe this is an opportunity where we can go spend more money on marketing to get more enrollment. Or maybe we're saying, hey, we actually are really in a good place with enrollment right now. We need to focus on staffing and hiring, or we need to focus on retention. And I guess for folks who maybe are like overwhelmed with the amount of data you can track, how do you use, I guess, your dashboards, your data points to, and are you using them to kind of focus in on maybe one strategy at a time to not kind of be overwhelmed by, the challenges of running a business?
Right. Yes, first we have to track his enrollment and FTEs, like how many kids do you need to sustain your enrollment and pay your bills and be profitable. Once you know your numbers, then you will know how many kids you need, and then you know how many staff you need, and then you may manage that. But yes, tracking those are so important because once you track that, then you go to the next piece is, do you have a system? How do you track your data? Then the system, you create the system, and then you know how do you train your staff on that system. So it is a triple effect because
Yeah.
you need those systems. It's like a roadmap. You need the enrollment. You need to know how much of enrollment you need. Then you need to know how much of staffing you need to maintain that enrollment. And then you need a system and to keep the data and track the data. And then you need to train them on how to use it because they have to have a part of it too because they are there daily at the front line making sure that the teachers understand that if you have X number of kids in your class, you're perfectly fine to have your full hours. But if you less kids in your class, then we might have to cut your hours, so that's going to hurt your pocket as well. So if the staff doesn't know that, and the reason why you are doing this, they're going to be like, they always want to have less kids. They always want to make sure that, they have less kids so they can handle these kids. But, you need to fill that classroom too, because your bottom line is going to get affected.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an important topic and something we see a lot as well. And I think we would all agree, hey, if you had to stack rank importance,
Mhm.
of course, taking care of the families in the center today in your care is top priority. But this is a business you're running, and we do need to make sure we're spending time and focusing on enrollment. And maybe data is a really good way to help tell this story. And I'll maybe just ask you to just expand a little bit on that, Kishani, because it's such an interesting and fascinating topic. Like how, like you're exposed to a lot of this data, you're exposed to these dashboards, you're kind of comfortable with these numbers and these metrics. How I guess what success have you seen talking about this with your directors, and has that been an effective way to show the light on the importance of something like enrollment? Whereas you said, hey, initially, like they're just not, people aren't focused on this. They're focused on running the center today, which is so much work in itself. But is this kind of educational piece around the data helpful to say, hey, listen, like if we want to pay our staff, if we want to make payroll, if we want to be functional, if we want to keep supporting the families we have today, like we need to focus on areas like enrollment, which maybe don't immediately come to mind.
So yes, so we do annual trainings with our staff, and we do monthly trainings with our staff, with our directors. So I go back to training them on how do you calculate to find out what's the cost for a month to take care of the child, and then break it down into monthly, weekly, and daily and hourly, so that way they know like according to my tracking that I have done at cost of care, it cost me $5.85 for a child per hour. And I took them at the just at an average. It's not because, sometimes infant kids are higher price and then the preschool kids are lower price, but I took the average of it and then broke it down and showed it to them that here is how much it costs per hour to take care of this child with providing food, providing the needs with the classroom, the training, the teaching, everything to this child, it cost me $5.85 a day, an hour. So that times 8 hours, if the kid is there, plus 5 days, plus a month, this is what the cost is. And this is why our prices are this high, because it takes this X number of dollars. Now, how did we get that price? Because you have to have all your numbers on your costs. So you need to put all your costs together and come up with that bottom line. Like, say it costs you $25,000 a month to run your center with payroll, the fixed costs, anything extra, insurance, all that. And then you divide that by the number of kids that you have, and that's how you get your numbers. So when they know that, they understand the reason why we are trying to push enrollments, and the reason why if a kid comes for 4 hours, we're only going to get paid this amount of money. But if I get another kid for that rest of the 4 hours, I can manage that breakdown, right? Because they know by the hour how many kids they can, how much it's costing them. And that has helped us to like expand. It has helped us for the teacher, the directors to understand, to keep those kids and not work with the parents and see how we can keep those enrollments going. Because enrollments are hurting for everybody right now. And if you don't know your bottom line, you're gonna be stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so well said and covered. And I didn't even think about it from the parent point of view too. How powerful is understanding the cost, because that helps you communicate with parents who of course are always a little
Correct.
frustrated with rising cost of care, and it helps you
Mhm.
understand, hey, why is the cost this much? Yeah, okay. Well, I know I want to leave a couple minutes for questions as we kind of wrap the conversation. Just to recap, this is a complicated topic, but it's so important, right? Understand how much it costs for you to run your center, and if you can, get it down to the child level to get a really good view. Implement systems that can help you visualize this data. Have a
Mhm.
dashboard that at least at the owner level you can go and view. Have scorecards are fantastic. You mentioned that. That's so important. If there's a scorecard you can use to have these weekly conversations with directors and staff, so you know where to look, and then contextualize the data, right? Okay, just because this
Right.
data point says this, that's not the whole story. So go talk with the team, meet with the team, understand what the story is behind the data, and then the beauty is being able to take action on that.
Right. And you can not only train your directors and your teachers to understand how much it's costing to take care of the child, you can also educate your parents when you send them that increased letter. You break it down and say, listen, yes, I'm charging $350 a week to take care of your child, but let me give you the breakdown. It's only costing maybe $5, $6 an hour to take care of your child, but here is where the breakdown is. So when you get to that real bottom line, the parents are like, oh, okay, I understand, but they're getting everything and I'm only paying them an hour, when you will have to pay for a babysitter $15, $20 an hour to take care of your child and not get everything that we are providing, the quality care, the environments that they are there for, the education environments, the social skills that the child gets. They don't get it when they are under a babysitter, right? So this is only costing this amount, and then they understand, okay, this is why, because that big number could change their mind and say, I can't afford to pay this. But when you break it down, they understand why they have to pay that, and it's not as much as a big deal for them too.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. That's such a great point. I don't even think we planned to talk about today, but it's fascinating here. Well, I know we just have kind of a couple minutes left here and want to save some time for questions. I think we got a couple, so I'm going to maybe toss these over to you, Kishani. One that was asked is, have you ever played around with doing flexible hours for directors, or are those pretty set times at the centers?
There are set times for my directors, but the flexible time I think is for doing the work, but it comes on their job description. This is what is expected from them, and this is a part of their job description. So they have to fill those scorecards out.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe when you
Mm,
get to that level,
mm,
there's an expectation that, hey, you might
mm.
end up working sometimes a little bit differently than the hours
Mm.
it says on the
Also, I think it's like if they know how their time management is, and you give them a whole system of like, how do you manage your time and what is expected every day, they are able to work more efficiently on that.
Yep, makes total sense. And then I know you'd mentioned, which is so helpful to have real data from you to contextualize a lot of this conversation. You mentioned the 585, and you talked a little bit about this, but is there a high level way again to just kind of back into how you kind of come up with those numbers and the expenses you take into account to get that kind of number?
Mhm. So you basically have to get your real expenses on how much are your the cost of running your center, which is including payroll, your fixed costs, anything, your insurance. You put everything into that, your salary. You put all that into that, and you come up with that number. And then how many kids are you? Your capacity is, and then you divide that by the number. There is a formula that I use. It's hard to explain without like showing you the formula, but to get that formula, I mean, Childcare Success is having a summit in October, and we are doing some of these metrics. We're showing some of these metrics. So if you all want to come and join the summit, you all will be able to get those. But if not, it's like you have to really know your numbers, and then you divide that by your capacity, and then you will get it by monthly, weekly, and then you keep on dividing it by how many weeks and stuff, so you get that end number. It's always good to know how much you spend to take care of a child per hour, and then you can build up.
Amazing. Well, yeah, I think kind of I know it feels like we could talk about data reporting and analytics all day long.
Right.
But I know we are just reaching the top of the half hour here, and it's a Friday. We want to make sure folks can get back to their operations and hopefully get off to a fun weekend with family and friends. But Kishani, I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I think there's so much interest in this topic that we need to keep having these discussions going, and the Success Summit is a fantastic place where we're absolutely going to continue to do that.